In this section, we'll turn AML and CFT from abstract rules into a practical defense system. You'll see how governance, risk assessment, controls, and people fit together, and what an effective program looks like in day-to-day financial operations. Regulators don't just want to see an AML CFT policy document. They want to understand how it actually works in your business. Think of it as a blueprint versus a building. The blueprint is your program design, alignment with FATF standards, local laws, and board-approved policies. The building is program effectiveness, how those rules shape real decisions, drive risk mitigation, and generate data and audit trails that prove your controls work in practice. Now, picture your AML CFT program as that building. The foundation is governance, tone from the top, and an enterprise-wide risk assessment. If that base is weak, everything above it wobbles. On top of that, you place clear internal controls, policies, and procedures, the rules and workflows that guide daily decisions. Then you have three core pillars: customer due diligence, transaction monitoring, and regulatory reporting. Finally, independent audit and compliance training check whether the whole structure actually works in practice. An effective AML program begins with strong governance and a solid enterprise-wide risk assessment. Senior management and the board define how much risk the institution is willing to accept, then require clear reporting lines, rapid escalation for issues, and regular risk metrics. The risk assessment itself works like a calibration dial. First, identify inherent risks in your customers, products, channels, and geographies. Then assess how effective current controls really are. Finally, calibrate. Strengthen controls where risk is highest and avoid over-controlling genuinely low-risk areas. Documentation sits in a clear hierarchy. At the top, policy is the mandate from the board. It states what the organization will and will not do and sets hard boundaries. Standards translate that mandate into concrete rules and thresholds. Procedures describe the step-by-step processes staff must follow to meet those standards. Work instructions and forms are the practical tools for frontline execution. Across all of this, robust lifecycle management is critical, so updates keep pace with regulatory change. Customer due diligence is about knowing exactly who you're dealing with and how risky they are, from entry to exit. First, you identify and verify the customer and any beneficial owners using reliable, independent sources. Then you understand context, why they want the relationship, how they expect to use it, and what normal looks like for them. Those insights feed into risk categorization. Is this standard or high risk? That rating then determines how deep you go and how often you revisit and refresh the file. Transaction monitoring and screening act like the nervous system of AML. They constantly compare live activity with what we learned in CDD, who the customer is, what they do, and what normal looks like for them. Effective programs combine engines and humans. The engines run rules, scenarios, and name screening against sanctions, PEP, and adverse media data. But those engines must be risk-tuned. High-risk areas get tighter thresholds and more alerts. Skilled analysts then step in, investigate context, document their reasoning, and feed improvements back into the system to reduce false positives. Regulatory reporting is where your monitoring work becomes a formal legal obligation. Millions of daily transactions are filtered by automated systems, but a report is only filed after human investigation confirms there's a reasonable suspicion. Once you reach that point, timing and quality are critical. Suspicious activity reports and threshold reports must be submitted within legal deadlines and supported by clear evidence. They must remain strictly confidential, with no tipping off the customer, and your case files and data must be retained accurately for future regulatory review. Training is the connective tissue of any AML program. Even the best policies fail if people don't know how to use them. Frontline staff need practical skills in CDD, red flags, and escalation. Operations teams must understand alert handling and documentation. Senior management needs focused training on oversight and accountability. At a minimum, every institution should have mandatory induction, regular refreshers, and evidence that training is understood and applied. Independent audit and testing are the trust but verify layer of an AML CFT program. Their job is to judge, with no bias, whether the design only looks good on paper or actually works in practice, which is why independence from day-to-day compliance is critical. Auditors look across everything: governance, risk assessments, CDD, transaction monitoring, reporting processes, and data quality. They don't just review policies, they test samples, interview staff, and challenge systems. Strong audits end in specific, trackable remediation actions with accountable owners and deadlines, not vague recommendations. The three lines of defense are three different perspectives on the same AML CFT risk. The first line is the business. They own the risk, deal with customers, execute CDD, and escalate concerns. The second line is compliance and the MLRO. They don't own the risk, but they design policies, guide the business, tune monitoring, and handle SAR or STR decisions. The third line is internal audit. They independently test whether those controls actually work and report weaknesses to the board. In a strong AML program, nothing stays static. You start by detecting and measuring, tracking KRIs, alert volumes, SAR quality, and backlogs to understand how your controls actually perform. Then you learn and analyze, combining incident data, audit findings, and regulator feedback to see what's really driving risk. Next, you adapt and update typologies, scenarios, and models to reflect new products, channels, and threats. Finally, you recalibrate your enterprise-wide risk assessment and risk appetite, and then repeat the loop. The key idea to take away is this: AML and CFT only work when they're woven into how your institution does business every day. Picture three interlocking gears. The foundation is your governance, policies, risk assessment, and systems. Operational pillars are your products, channels, and processes where controls quietly run in the background. People are frontline staff, compliance, and senior management making informed, risk-based decisions. When these move together, you get both speed and safety. Fast customer service with controls that continuously defend against financial crime.